Keeping in mind that this is the week of Miladun Nabi, as well as coming close to the Christmas celebration of the Christians, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about our perspective as far as Christmas is concerned. But in the background, we have to realize that Prophet Isa alayhi salam has a special status in Islam. Among the 124,000 prophets, there are 5 who are considered to be at the top, known as Ulul Azm. And one of those 5 is Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. We also believe in his miraculous birth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Maryam talks about the birth of Maryam as well as the birth of Isa. And in that surah and many other ayat of Quran, also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the special powers that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to him. And these are the powers which had been given to many, many prophets. But Isa ibn Maryam was specially, described in this way in the Quran with the power of healing the blind and the leper, as well as the ability to bring dead back to life. And this is where we have to realize that, Isa ibn Maryam has a very special status in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that his birth was a miracle and Allah had given him miracles, powers to perform miracles, he also received a revelation, a holy book known as Injil. What is now existing in form of the New Testament or the Bible, the Christian part of the Bible, it is not same as Injil. Injil, according to our belief in the Quran, is the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Isa ibn Maryam. Whereas Bible, when you look at it, the New Testament, they themselves say that these are the books written by individuals. You have the name of John, Mark, Matthew, and Luke assigned to it as the authors of those Gospels. And when you look at it, basically it is the life, story as well as death and resurrection according to their belief of Isa ibn Maryam. And so when we should not confuse our belief in Injil as a revealed book on Isa ibn Maryam to the New Testament which exists now. These are not same things. If we want to compare the New Testament to in the Islamic context, it will be more or less like Hadith, where the companions of the Prophet quoted his statements, talked about him and his life. And just as Hadith is open to scrutiny and criticism, similarly we believe that the New Testament is not a holy book in that sense, not like Quran. So don't bring, the New Testament to the equal to the Quran. At the most, it can be related to Hadith literature that we have in the Muslim world. And so now let's, keep that status of Isa ibn Maryam in mind and then look at the issue of Christmas celebration. We have to realize that it's not only Isa ibn Maryam, because of him, those who follow him, even though, the book is not intact, Injil has not survived in its true form, there has been many, many changes, but still Islam accords a special position and status to the Christians among the non-Muslims. And they are part of what is known as Ahl al-Kitab. Even the rules in fiqh about Ahl al-Kitab are different from the way, the Sharia looks at other non-Muslims. Nonetheless, this does not mean that we mix the religious rituals of Islam with Christianity. They are 2 different religions. We respect the Ahl al-Kitab. We honor Isa ibn Maryam. We believe that the basis of that religion was the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Islam had its own, distinctive way of doing things. You look at the Qibla. Even the Qibla initially was the same as Jerusalem. But then, Rasulullah wanted to have something, special for Muslims, where they will not be following somebody else. And this is where the change comes in Medina. And very beautifully, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Surah Baqarah actually, He talks about it. He says, when the Prophet went to Medina, and they were still facing Jerusalem at that time, Masjid al-Aqsa, the Jewish community in Medina started saying that, well, you are following our Qibla. And the Prophet didn't like that. And the Quran describes, وَنَرَى تَقَلُّبَ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ. Oh Muhammad, we see, you turning your face towards the heaven, as if pleading to Allah without words that, oh Allah, get me out of this. I want to have my own special, distinctive Qibla. And that is where the ayat came down, that, oh Muhammad, we will change your Qibla to the one that you are pleased with and you like. And that is where it became the Kaaba. And so you look at the issue of Qibla, you look at the issue of Adhan. In the early days in Medina, namaz was already there from the days of Mecca. But Adhan was not there. Many of the people of Medina were farmers. They would go outside the town to do the farming in the fields. And many times they look at the sun. By the time they come to the masjid, the namaz is over. So they asked the Prophet for a mechanism by which it could be known that it's time for prayers. And people suggested many things. They said, why don't we use the bell used by the Christians, or the trumpet used by the Jewish people, or the fire used by the Zoroastrians? And remember, these are all considered to be Ahlul Kitab in our fiqh. And this is the Prophet said no. He waited, according to our tradition, until Jibreel came down with what is known as Adhan. So even the Adhan was a very specific, Muslim way of announcing the call for prayers. And so we cannot mix our rituals with the rituals of Ahlul Kitab. And so Christians have the celebration of Christmas. It's good, there's no problem for them, but we don't necessarily, celebrate that. So there is no room for having a Christmas tree at home, even though we believe in Isa ibn Maryam, because that's not an Islamic ritual, that is a Christian, celebration. However, having said all this, let me make it very clear that it doesn't mean that, there is any harm in greeting your Christian neighbor or your colleague at work with the greetings of Christmas holidays or the seasons. There is absolutely no problem there from the Shari point of view. It is their celebration. You can greet them in that way. And, you don't even, sometimes we hear that, when they say Merry Christmas to a Muslim, they say, I don't celebrate. Yes, you don't celebrate. But there is nothing wrong in responding to that, if they greet you in that way. Because when it comes to the greeting, especially in this part of the world, we live in a majority Christian society. So greeting, your neighbors or your colleagues about Christmas is not a problem from the Shari'i point of view. Nor is there any problem in giving a gift to your Christian friend or neighbor according to their own, religious holidays. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Mumtahina, when He says, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to those who do not kill you for your religion, do not fight you for your religion, do not throw you out of your homes, Allah does not prevent you from being kind to them and to be just towards them. Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin. Allah loves those who are, fair and just in dealing with others. And so this would be part of it. Giving a gift to a Christian neighbor or a colleague wouldn't be a problem during the Christmas time. What about receiving a gift from a Christian, your employer? It's very norm here. People, give gifts to their employees during this time. There is no problem there. Of course, sometimes you end up having in the bag a bottle of alcohol. Of course, we know it's haram. Nobody should even ask, Maulana, what do I do with that? it's very clear about it. But sometimes the question comes up, can I gift that further to a Christian? No. When it comes to khamr, it's haram. You cannot be part of it. So if it's given to you, you just have to, basically destroy it. You cannot further, recycle it and give it to somebody else. And so this is where we see, this is a very balanced approach. This is the moderate approach. And this is sirat mustaqim, away from maghdubi alayhim and waladhdallin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the wisdom to understand the true path of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad salawatullah alayhi ajma'een. إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوبة وهو الغفور الرحيم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف على العباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعمة ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بالتوبة ما سلف من ذنوبكم. Since I talked about Christmas and Isa ibn Maryam, let me, elaborate more on this issue and relate to the Shi'i perspective about Isa. As I said, he has a special status among the Anbiya. And the miracles that we talk about, that Allah had given him the power to perform those, these are there right in the Quran. In Surah Al-Imran, for example, ayat number 49, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes him where he says, قد جئتكم بآية من ربكم. I have come to you. أني قد جئتكم. I verily have come to you with a sign from your Lord. Number one, أني أخلق لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير. I will, make from the tin, from the clay, a form of the bird. فأنفخ فيه, and then I will breathe into it. فيكون طيرا بإذن الله, and it will become a living bird by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وأبرئ الأكمه والأبرص وأحيي الموتى بإذن الله, and I also heal those who are blind and those who are leper, and I bring the dead back to life. وأحيي الموتى بإذن الله, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's interesting that, well, let me continue the ayat first. وَأُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تُدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. And I'll inform you of what you ate today. I wasn't there at home, but I know what you ate, what is in your bellies today, and I also know what you hoard and gather and accumulate the wealth inside your homes. And so here we see that, he's talking about making the form of the bird from a clay and then turning into a living, flying bird. And that's not science, this is miracle. And then he talks about the issue of healing of the blind, healing of the leper. and bringing the dead back to life. And then he talks about ilm ghaib, that I have the information about things that I have not seen. And these are just the example that I know what you ate today, and I know what you have hoarded inside your homes. But when it comes to the first example of making the form of the bird from the clay and turning into a living flying bird, he uses the term bi'idhnillah, just to make sure people do not think that he is God. Because we associate this issue of creation, and even when he talks about وَأُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, when I bring the dead back to life, again he puts these words, بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. This is done with the power of Allah given to me. I am not God. But the reality is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give these powers to His chosen one, He can do that. Even before that, if you look at Surah Maryam, when the description about his birth, when he was still in the cradle, maybe 3 or 5 years, 5 days old, after his birth, not even a week old. When the people started asking Maryam, how could you have a child? You're not even married. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave the power to that infant baby to speak. قَالَ إِنِّي عَبْدُ اللَّهِ آتَانِيَ الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلَنِي النَّبِيَّ. That I am the servant of Allah. This is again ilm al-ghayb. In a way, he is saying that I know a time will come, you will say, I am Ibnullah, or I am Allah. But I'm letting you know from day one, Inni Abdullah, I am the servant of Allah. Atani al-kitab, He has given me the book. Isa was not born with Injil. Here, kitab doesn't mean book, it means knowledge. I have been blessed with knowledge right now. وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا, and He has made me a Nabi. وَجَعَلَنِي مُبَارَكًا أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُ, and Allah has made me blessed. Wherever I go, barakat and blessings come with me. وَأَوْصَانِ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ مَا دُمْتُ حَيًّا. As long as I am alive, Allah had advised me to do the prayers and to give in charity. وَبَرًّا بِوَالِدَتِي, and to be kind to my mother. Now he doesn't say بِوَالِدَيْ, because he didn't have the father, so he just talks about the mother. And to be kind to my mother. وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْنِي جَبَّارًا شَقِيًّا, He didn't make me a kind of tyrant and oppressive person when I deal with the people of the family. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيَّ يَوْمَ وُلِدْتُ. So peace be on the day I was born. Those Wahhabis who have a problem with Miladun Nabi, this is Isa announcing his Milad. Assalamu alayya yawma wulidtu. Salam on me the day I was born. Wa yawma amutu, the day I shall die. Wa yawma ub'asu hayyan, and the day I shall be raised back to life. And so when we look at this ayat of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the special power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to him, we should not be surprised. And this is where some Muslims have problems. And a very small segment of Shias also have problems. When we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bless Muhammad and Ali Muhammad with similar or even more power than what was given to Isa ibn Maryam. And this is actually, there is a statement of the Prophet, and I'll end with this hadith, where the Prophet says to Ali, talking about Isa there, Ya Ali, mathaluka fi ummati mathala al-Masih ibn Maryam. Oh Ali, your example in my community is like the example of the Messiah, Isa ibn Maryam. His people were divided into 3 communities, 3 groups. فِرْقَةٌ مُؤْمِنُونَ وَهُمَ الْحَوَارِيُّونَ. There was one group of the true believers who believed in him as a Nabi and a Rasul and believed in his miraculous birth and his powers. وَفِرْقَةٌ عَادُوهُ وَهُمَ الْيَهُودِ. But there were others, the Jewish community, who rejected him, didn't even recognize his prophethood. وَفِرْقَةٌ غَلُوا فِيهِ فَخَرَجُوا عَنِ الْإِيمَانِ. But there was a third group, the extremists, the Ghali, who elevated his status to the level of Ibn Allah and Allah himself, and they are the one who had gone out of the fold of Iman and faith. إِنَّ أُمَّتِي سَتَفْتَرِقُ فِيكَ ثَلَاثَ فِرَقٍ. And then the Prophet says to Ali that even my ummah, my community will be divided regarding you into three communities, three groups. فَفِرْقَةُ شِيعَتِكَ وَهُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. One will be your Shias, and they are the true believers who know this, your status and the honors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you. وَفِرْقَةٌ عَادُّوكَ وَهُمُ الشَّاكُونَ. And those who are your enemies, who doubt about your honors and your status and your position. وَفِرْقَةٌ تَغْلُ فِيكَ. And there will be a group who exaggerate about you and put you to a level even above that of the Nabi or all the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes they talk as if Allah is retired and the whole world is run by Ali. And that is ghulu. And this is where it's a very interesting way that the Prophet compares the example of, Isa is same as the situation of Ali ibn Abi Talib. At the end he says, وَأَنْتَ فِي الْجَنَّةِ يَا عَلِي وَشِيعَتُكَ. O Ali, you will be in Jannah and your Shias, وَمُحِبُّ شِيعَتِكَ. And those who love your Shias, وَعَدُوُّكَ وَالْغَالِ فِي النَّارِ. And your enemies and those who exaggerate, do ghulu, they will go to the Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on Sirat al-Mustaqim, away from the two extremes. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه. وعلى سيدة النساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها. وعلى سيد الشباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان. ماحي آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أمنية الشرك والنفاق حاصد فرو البغي والشقاق. صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرج وسهل مخرجه واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.